Hello guys and welcome to another mobility class. So in today's class we're going to be focusing on ankle and knee rotation. So for the ankle, our ability to evert, so collapse inwards, and inversion, our ability to collapse outwards. This will also be coupled a little bit, there's some internal and external knee rotation work to follow. So in terms of what you're going to be needing for today's class, 2 yoga blocks. I have a selection of wedges here. I have a few and I highly recommend if you have wedges, get them. If you don't have, then something similar to elevate the foot in different positions will be very helpful for some of the setups that we work with. Also an option is a folded towel. This will also come in handy maybe for some of the setups, and also you might find it will help to support some of the setups ourselves, maybe for the ankle, maybe for the knee, just to bring a bit more comfort. Last few things, a stick. This is also just for balance for some of our exercises, and a wall. Besides that, just a bit of floor space is all else that you need. Now, before we get started, what we're actually going to do is just sit down in the passive squat for 1 minute. So, as I sit down in my passive squat, I'm just here and I'm just spending a bit of time just moving around and assessing how things feel. If you don't happen to have a deep squat but you're not far off it, then using a folded up towel to elevate your heels, or like I have these wedges here now for lifting up my heels, I can then use those to sit down. If you find this is a lot more comfortable and achievable, then elevate the heels a little bit with wedges or with a folded towel. Alternatively, you can also be in this position. If you feel you squat down and you have your heels just a little off the floor, maybe just offload a little bit of your weight with your hands, and you can be here also doing the same thing. Last option as a regression is just on your hands and knees in this position. Sit back as much as you feel you can and just aim to try to close the knee joint as best as you can, and then just spend a bit of time moving back and forth here. With this setup, with regards to whichever setup you actually go into, what we are trying to assess is how things feel around the ankle, how things feel around the knee, how much freedom of movement we also have. So this will be for 1 minute. So choose a setup that you want to get into, and then from here I'm sitting in my passive squat now, and I just want to see how things feel. So I'm just moving from side to side a little bit. I can play a little bit with my movement patterns, so I can play a little bit maybe with trying to get one knee to go over the toes, see how that feels. Try that on the other side. See how much internal rotation I have. How well can I maybe collapse my ankle inwards, my knee inwards. How well can I maybe do the opposite, take the knee out, open under the foot here. And then just think organically, move around a little bit, and you just want to assess how do things feel around that knee joint. Do you feel any discomfort, any restrictions, limitations, tightness? How does it feel from one side to the other? Are there any areas sitting in this squat where you feel limited with the ankles? Maybe you feel a bit of tension. Just make any little assessments now, make note of them, and we'll revisit this at the end. And when you're ready, you can come out of that position. And then what we are going to do is move on to our knee cast now. So for this, I'm going to bend one leg. The other leg I can cross underneath or have it out straight. This arm is going to hook underneath this leg as so. Now to begin with, I'm going to place this hand over the bicep, hand over my shin bone. So this hand is over here, and I'm using this hand to give me some feedback on what I'm feeling. What I want is to feel this tibia or shin bone here to actually rotate from side to side when I begin this exercise. So my ankle is on the floor at the moment. And then what I'm going to do here is just externally rotate and then internally rotate. So I'm just going back and forth. My foot turns out, my foot turns in, but I'm trying to get that rotation coming from my knee joint. With my hand over my shin, I'm just trying to feel that bone rotate from side to side. So that's what we're trying to influence. Now what we're going to do is externally rotate the knee, so I'll turn outwards. I'm going to lift off slightly so my ankle is off the ground now, and this hand will now go over on top of my knee. So from here what I'm going to do is extend the knee, finishing just shy of a lockout, internally rotate the knee now, close that knee as best as I can, and repeat that one more time. Externally rotate, extend finishing just shy, internally rotate, and close. Now holding internal rotation, I am going to extend, and then externally rotate, close. We'll do that one more time. Internally rotate, extend, externally rotate, and close. Switching sides. Arm hooks underneath the leg, hand over the bicep, keeping the heel on the floor to begin with. This hand is then eversion. And just begin with rotating back and forth. Try to now make that connection of trying to get the movement coming as best as you can from the knee joint. Okay, now what we're going to do is take this hand, place it over the knee, lift off slightly, externally rotate the knee as best as I can, extend, and then internally rotate, flex. Externally rotate, extend, internally rotate, and flex. Holding internal rotation, we are now going to extend, externally rotate, flex, and one more time. Internally rotate, extend, externally rotate, and flex. Okay, brilliant. Now for the ankle, what we're going to do is take one yoga block, and I'm going to place my leg over the block as so. So the bottom leg is not a focus, I can cross it, have it straight, whatever feels comfortable. From here guys, so what we want to focus on is having all the movement coming from our ankle joints and nothing above. So pay attention to that shin bone moving side to side. Pay attention to your knee moving side to side and your thigh. These are things that we want to avoid completely, as well as any knee bending. So with ankle cars, I'm just going to begin to draw a circular motion. Now this is the main focus of today's class, so what I want you to focus in on now is just finding a nice, slow, steady pace. You may notice this particular motions as you're going through this, where you find yourself moving quite fast and slow, then fast. Try to smoothen that out. As you go through this, you just then are beginning to assess on how things feel, how much range are you managing to get, where do you feel the limitations, now change direction. A lot of what we're focusing on is the rotation, so that's side to side movement of the ankle, but at the same time improving that journey will help more of our linear motion. So just pay attention to how well you can plantar flex and dorsiflex. Alright, now what we're going to do is bias the toes or the ankle into a plantar flex position with the toes curled. So I'm trying to curl my toes as best as I can. Okay, almost like I'm trying to squeeze something underneath those toes, and then I'm going to hold that effort, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing going through my ankle curls. And then pay attention to how different this may feel. We are going to influence a lot of the stuff that plays a role in this. So as you plantar flex, as you point the toes, how does that point feel? This is generally where we'll feel we'll lose it, because that's where we're stretching those muscles the most. That's it, and then just remind yourself, keep those toes as curled as possible. Now change direction. Try not to let those toes open up. At the same time, as you're going through this, I want you to just assess now if you are feeling tension in new areas with this setup. How does it feel? How does that tension feel? Does it feel tight? Do you have a good stretch in particular areas? And change direction if you haven't already changed direction. A few more reps. Excellent. Now switch sides. So just to begin with, just going through normal ankle cars. Begin to just tune in, create a steady pace, pay attention to what's happening above the ankle, try to avoid the compensations, and now change direction. And then begin to tune into the sensations as you go through the movement, where you feel the limitations, where it feels most comfortable, where it doesn't. And now what we're going to do is bias the toes. So I'm going to curl my toes as if I was squeezing something underneath. I'm going to hold that and then continue. And paying attention to how well I can keep those toes curled. When I plantar flex, when I point my feet away, how well can I hold on to that flexion of the toes? What am I having to keep tension as well in order to hold that position? And now change direction. And just tune in to generally how things feel. We'll revisit the ankle cars at the very end. Excellent. Okay. Now for our next setup, we are going to first focus on ankle inversion. So I'm going to promote this collapsed ankle setup. For this, depending on the surface that you're now working with, you may find getting that towel, placing it underneath your ankle and exploring this this setup might be easier, more comfortable and work better for you. So if you do have a very hard surface, I definitely recommend putting some sort of cushioning or towel underneath your foot. I've got a nice soft mat, so it allows me to kind of sink in a little bit, and that works very well. You may also for this want a yoga block just to help support your other hands. So now how this is going to work is I'm going to be in this kneeling position. Okay, I've taken the yoga block to kind of make it more comfortable for my supporting hand. I am then going to collapse the ankle as so, and then this hand I'm going to place over my ankle. Alright, this hand here is going to play an important role. First, it's just supporting the ankle and holding that position. And then what I want to do is find a nice stretch, so a nice line of tension, which can be very specific for yourself. So what we're influencing works from the toes, works its way up around here, and then further up towards our knee. So generally we're looking for a stretch around this region, but you could feel a very specific stretch further down, further up along these muscles here, and that's also fine if you're feeling more of a tension in that region. But ideally we are going to try and focus on opening up this whole ankle region here if possible. So the hand is there. Now the variables that we have to play with is right now I have a lot of my weight on this side of my body, so I'm not really putting much pressure onto my ankle, but I can gradually start to shift my body weight over so that I'm beginning to lean more weight onto this ankle now. Okay, I'm taking weight off this arm. And then from here, you can play a little bit with moving the knee. So I'll move the knee forwards, I'll move the knee back. I'm moving my upper body in relation. I can move the knee a bit more out to the side, move it a little bit more inwards. and play with how much as well can I collapse this ankle. So that in combination with as well positioning my upper body over my ankle, what I'm trying to do now is see, can I get myself into a position in which I feel I get a very nice stretch along here. And then once you've found a nice line of tension, I want you to now hold that position. So while we're holding the position, I'll explain the PAILS and rails. The PAILS contraction is to contract everything on the outside here, especially where I feel the stretch sensation. And I'm contracting it with the intention to flatten my foot back to the ground. Okay, so as I contract all of that, I need to make sure that this hand I had here stays here to block it so that the ankle won't actually move. We'll build that effort up, and then afterwards we'll move on to a rails contraction, which is going to be to contract the opposite side, so the inside of my ankle, even under the foot slightly, as if I was trying to promote more of this direction of collapsing my ankle into that stretch that we were working with. Alright, as you do that, just be mindful not to press your body weight into your ankle simultaneously, as it will create a bigger stretch and it might become a bit too intense. Alright, so we've held the stretch for a little bit. I want you to now take a good breath in, solidify a little bit tension throughout the whole body. And now 20% begin to contract this underneath region that you feel on stretch. Tune in and see how that feels to begin with. If you feel capable, then build it up to a 40% effort. And then decide for yourself when to stop with this. If it's the first time training these type of muscles and you're new to this, I would suggest maybe stopping at the 60 to 70% and see how you feel after your first session the next day before deciding to work a little harder. So now 60, 80, and if you feel capable, give it your best effort, and now we are holding that effort. Trying not to let anything else change in the body. Stay with it, 15 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now the rails contraction. So you can remove your arm if you want. Okay, but now you're thinking contract that inside region underneath the foot slightly to try and actively promote more of this collapsed ankle position. I want you to give it your safest and best effort for this contraction. It's almost like I'm holding that stretch on the outside with this contraction now. Holding for 10 more seconds, and then afterwards we're going to reset and try to go a little deeper into the passive stretch. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hand goes back over. And then from here, pay attention to what happens as you relax everything. You might find you just naturally sink a little deeper into a nice stretch. If that's the case, stay there. If not, play around with the variables I provided. Try to find a good deeper line and tension again. And then just focus on the breath. Try to calm the nervous system down. Slow breath in, slower breath out. Alright, we'll go into our second round now. Once again, take a good brace. Solidify. PAILS contraction 20. Contracting that outside ankle region. 40. 60. 80. 'Safest and greatest effort. 'Try not to let the effort drop. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, Excellent. And now the rails contraction, contracting the other side, trying to promote that collapsed ankle a little bit more. Keep it held. 10 more seconds. And then the hand will go back over and we'll go a little deeper into our passive stretch. In 3, 2, 1, I want you to relax the contraction and just try to soften and find your way a little deeper into that passive stretch now. I'm going to spend about another 15 seconds here, just getting a few slow breaths in and out. And when you're ready, slowly come out of that position. Alright, so switching sides. So I go into my half kneeling. I can use a yoga block to help support my hands. Then I will collapse this ankle. I turn this foot out. I let the ankle collapse. And then from here, this hand is over. Right now I have most of my weight onto the other arm, but I gradually shift weight over. If I don't feel I'm in a great position, I might just adjust slightly however I feel I need to. Then from here, I'm playing with knee going forwards, knee going back, in, out, how much I collapse my ankle as well, how much I push and put weight into the other leg, into the ankle. And then once I've found a nice line of tension, something that feels comfortable and a good sort of sensation, stretch to hold, I'll just spend a bit of time now just being there and holding the passive stretch. So right now we're just trying to get comfortable with the stretch. So if it feels a little bit too intense, then just come out of the stretch a little bit to what feels a bit more comfortable to spend a bit of time in. Alright, follow along. So take a good brace. PAILS contraction, we're starting to contract that outside region, contracting what we feel on stretch at 20%. Tune in, see how it feels before deciding to build up the efforts. 40, 60, pay attention, see how it feels at 60 before thinking to build up. 80, and safest and greatest effort, and hold. Almost there. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction now. Contracting this inside region, even a little bit under the foot, trying to promote more of that collapsed ankle. All active. So I'm not using this hand to push deep into the stretch right now. I'm trying to hold that stretch with all the active contraction from the other side. 15 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hand goes back over, and then try to get yourself into a new nice passive stretch. Slightly deeper line of tension, and then we'll just hold this position before round 2. Slow breath in, slow breath out. Okay, round 2, so now take a good brace again. Solidify, build tension throughout the whole body. PAILS contraction, 20%. That intentional trying to flatten the foot back down to the ground. 40, 60, 80, safest, greatest effort. Seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now the rails contracting all the inside region, trying to collapse the ankle more. Keep that effort held. 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and now we're going to soften, get deep into our passive stretch. We just hold here for another 15 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then when you are ready, slowly come out of that position. And then when you are ready as well, slowly stand up. Now we are going to do a third set, targeting very much the same area. However, the setup will be slightly different. So this is going to be a standing variation. Here you might find the stick helpful to help support yourself and for the balance. Again, a towel underneath the ankle might be very helpful for this one. Now, I do exactly the same in a standing position. I want to collapse my ankle, so I want to go into eversion. And from here, I can then play with either having the knee completely locked out or putting a slight bend into my knee. I can play with how much weight I'm distributing. So right now I've got a 50-50 weight balance, but I could choose to put more of my body weight over this ankle. And I can also play with how I manipulate my whole body. So if I turn my upper body and rotate in this direction, so I'm moving with the pelvis, I'm turning my whole body in this sort of organic fashion. Okay, it will generally put me in a position which begins to stretch all of this a little bit more. If I go the other way, I generally find I take myself out of that stretch. So with all those variables, again, I want you to just find a nice line of tension. It will most likely feel different than the setup that we just did. And that is important because in total we are doing 3 sets in each side. If you do find that this particular setup, the standing variation, works much better for you and you prefer it, then you may choose going forwards to do your 3 sets with all the standing variations. If you found both worked very well, then you may want to stick with the split that I've demonstrated in today's class. 2 in the kneeling and then 1 standing, or go with 1 kneeling, 2 standing even. I don't think either setup is better. I just think they're different and some will work better for others and vice versa. So it's about finding out what setups work the best for you and even adapting to them, using them over certain other setups as well is important if you find certain setups do not work out. Okay, so now we've held this position a little bit, we're going to begin the PAILS contraction. You don't have anything now to block that ankle, so you need to imagine there's almost a wall up the ankle and you're pushing against that imaginary wall that doesn't allow you to flatten your foot back down. Stick are placed in a way that keeps me supported. I can strategically build tension. So from here I take a good brace, I'm squeezing the stick, sending tension through the upper body into the lower body as well, and then I start the PAILS contraction at 20%. So contracting that outside region, trying to flatten that foot without actually doing so. Nothing else changes. 40, 60, 80, safest, greatest effort, and hold. More seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and circumduction. Again, contracting the inside ankle, trying to influence more of that collapsed ankle. Trying to get more inversion. "15 seconds. Keep tension. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften, but do not come out of the stretch just yet. Just try to get into that passive stretch. Hold for about 15 seconds. And now when you're ready, you can slowly flatten the foot. Come out of that position. Move the ankle around if you feel you need to. And then when you feel ready, we will switch sides. So from this stance, I roll over my ankle, and then I play with, say, a little knee bend or locking the knee out. I play with turning my body, rotating in this direction, seeing how that feels. I play with how I position the stick, how much weight I place over this leg now. Variables, explore them in combination. Try to find a nice line of tension, and then just hold. Okay, so follow along, take a good brace again, PAILS contraction, contracting all of this outside region, 20, 40, 60, 80, and safest, greatest effort. To let our effort drop, 15 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and now rails contraction. So try to keep that effort, trying not to let it drop. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly soften. Try to get a little deeper into the passive stretch. And then when you are ready, slowly come out of that position. And when you feel ready, if you feel you need to move the ankle around a little bit, do so. So we worked inversion, now we're going to the opposite, we're going to work eversion. Now with this one here, I generally like to use the wedges. I'm going to demonstrate this one, but with this setup, you have a few options. So what we want to initially do is figure a way that we can kind of promote now collapsing the ankle inwards. So I want this whole region here to collapse inwards. With this particular setup, we may, well, it's hard to avoid getting the involvement with the knee. So contributing with a little bit of internal rotation of the knee, so letting the knee go inwards, you may find helps in order to find a nice line of tension while exploring this stretch. Just be mindful if you do have a history of knee issues and you do experience medial internal knee pain in here, just be mindful how much you're going inwards with your knee. Don't force so much that is giving you a lot of discomfort here. If you feel a mild stretch, I'm okay with that, but I don't want you to push through too hard. I can play now with foot position, so I can have my foot pointing this way towards the wall, okay, and then collapse inwards, As I mentioned before, now here what I'm doing is playing with how much I bend the knee, letting that knee go in. I can also explore with how much that knee goes forwards. So from here, I'm just trying, see how well can I collapse the ankle inwards. Again, I can manipulate my upper body, so I can twist or rotate myself this direction, and that's going to also assist in moving the pelvis, moving the knee inwards, collapsing the ankle. Okay. Alternatively, I can go at a slightly different angle with my foot, so I can go more at a 45-degree and explore, see how that feels. It's a very organic setup, this one. It's a combination of letting the ankle collapse in, letting the knee also play a role if you want or can collapse in, and see how that in combination with adjusting your upper body, leaning back a little bit more, leaning to the side, rotating, seeing what you can do to get a sort of nice stretch around this ankle region. There's a lot of muscles that run their way up here and up the back here, so you may feel it around here, you may also feel it a little bit on the calves, underneath the feet. Okay, so just pay attention to where you're feeling. If you're feeling around that region, then that's fine to be working with. So I have 45 degrees with my foot. I can also choose to go more on a foot pointing forwards and then collapse inwards. Okay, with this setup, I want to make sure that the outside of my foot is elevated. This will allow me to collapse the ankle inwards quite easily and find myself in a position in which I can hold. Okay, so you have the variables to play with in terms of foot angle to explore, how much you bend the knee, let it roll in, even forwards, and then what you're doing with your upper body, turning or rotating with the upper body, leaning back as well. This is one which I've found it takes a bit of exploration to figure out what setup works the best for you. As for me, I just double up these wedges, and I've found going at a 45-degree at this sort of incline actually works the best for me to get a really nice stretch and explore different lines of tension around that ankle region as I described. If you don't have wedges, okay, you can play a little bit with maybe a yoga block. So with the yoga block, I'll place it against the wall like this. It's not as comfortable, but then I can play with getting the forefoot on the block, again playing with that angle of my ankle, and then exploring from here. This is where, depending on the yoga block, if it's a soft one, it should be okay. If it's a hard cork block like I have, get the towel, back it over, and then try it again. Another option to play with is getting a towel, rolling it a little bit or folding it, and then doing the same thing here. This will act as a little bit of cushioning, and you should find you can then try to set your ankle in a way that is supported in a collapsed inwards position, and then try the same thing. Once again, you can play with foot positions like this. This is an interesting one because a soft surface underneath generally still allows things on the foot to spread a little bit, and these type of stretches we're exploring generally do ask for things to move around underneath the ankle. So this one does take a little bit of exploration. I would definitely advise try a few different setups until you figure out what works best for you. Now, this is going to be also PAILS and rails. So I want you guys to play with the setup. Once you found a nice setup, you're just going to hold that position. Again, we're just getting comfortable in this position now, holding the stretch. And then what we're going to do is also PAILS and rails for this. So while you're holding, I'll explain to you guys. The PAILS contraction again is going to contract what I feel is on stretch. So that's going to be the inside of this ankle region. And I'm contracting it with the intention pretty much to bring my foot back to this flattened position. So if I was here, I'm contracting the inside of my ankle to try to promote this. Again, I want to imagine now that there's something blocking my ankle from actually being able to do that movement. So when I create that contraction, nothing actually moves. The rails will be the opposite. Contract all the inside of the ankle to try to promote more of that collapsed inwards movement pattern. Okay, almost like you're contracting this to also even shorten all of these muscles to drive your ankle towards the ground in that direction. So follow along with me. We are going to do 2 rounds of this. So take a good brace now, and PAILS contraction, contracting what is on stretch with that intention as if I was trying to flatten the foot back down. 40, 60, 80, and safest, greatest effort. Stay with it. 15 more seconds. Three, 2, 1, and now switch contraction. So now rails contraction, contracting this whole outside region to try to promote more of the ankle inversion. Fight your best to get as much eversion as you can through the ankle. Keep that held. 10 more seconds, and then what we'll do is relax the contraction and try to go a little deeper into our passive stretch. 3, 2, 1. Soften. And then again, pay attention. Just by softening, some of us may find we just easily sink into a stretch. Others may need to explore a little bit, move around, figure out what you need to do with your body in order to find a nice line of tension again. And then just holding. Okay, round 2. Follow along. Take a good brace, solidify, and PAILS contraction, contracting the inside tissues. 20, 40, 60, 80, safest and greatest effort. More seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now rails, contracting the outside region of the ankle. Stay with it, guys. 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly soften. Sink a little deeper into the stretch for me. Then when you are ready, you can now slowly begin to come out of that position, and then we'll switch sides. Alright, now, once again, setting yourself up, you can play with that foot position, foot angle, play with having it at 45-degree angle, or even more, pointing forwards, and then just try to let the knee roll in a bit, combined with collapsing the ankle inwards. Play with how much you let the knee roll, how well can you collapse that ankle, play with moving the knee forwards or back as well, play with how you move your upper body in relation. And then once you've found a good line of tension, hold. Okay, follow along now. So, begin PAILS contraction, contracting the inside as if I was trying to now flatten the foot down. 20, 40, 60, 80, safest, greatest effort, and hold. Almost there, 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction now. Contracting the outside of the ankle, all of this outside region, trying to promote more of that collapsed ankle inwards. Stay with it. 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Try to soften without coming out of position, and then manipulate your body. Try and figure out what you need to do in order to get a slight bit deeper into a good line of tension and hold. I'll hold for another 10 seconds, and then we'll go into our second round. Okay, follow along. Solidifying, good brace. PAILS contraction, 20, 40, 60, 80, safest and greatest effort. 15 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Rails contraction, contracting the inside of the ankle, outside of the ankle I mean, trying to promote more of that inward collapsed position. Keep it held. 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften. Try to sink a little deeper into your passive stretch. And now when you're ready, slowly coming out of that position. Okay everyone, so we're now going to move on to our next part, which is our knee series, and this is going to now to start to introduce more movement patterns that also will introduce the ankle in various movement planes that we have been training it. With these exercises that we're going to now be doing, a stick may be helpful and optional, especially if you know you're not great with balance or you've had previous injuries around your knees or ankles before. You may want to do some of these exercises with a stick just for support and balance, and also just stay safe. Our next exercise is taking this stance. So I've taken a sort of squat stance. You can play now with this one with the width of your feet position. Generally going wider, I find makes this exercise a little bit more challenging. The exercise is going to look like this. So I'm going to focus on one leg and I'm collapsing one leg inwards. So the knee will internally rotate, the ankle will collapse inwards. To start off, this is how I would begin the movement to explore how things feel. It's a very small movement. I assess how does it feel to load the inside of the ankle and the inside knee just by doing that small movement. I then assess as I go through it, how does it feel to put more weight on this leg and take weight off the other leg. And then I can challenge myself. So from here I can go further more inwards with my knee. I can collapse the ankle more, and I can also combine that with leaning back. So as I go through the motion, everything collapses inwards. I internally rotate the hip a bit. I collapse back and lean back. I'm putting more weight onto my rear leg now. And then I come back up to the start. Once again, a stick may be very helpful. If you've had injuries in the past around your knees and ankles, you may want to use a stick to assist. So as I go through the motion, I have the stick here, so in case I go a little too far and I feel a little too vulnerable, I can push down into the stick to help me as well. So do use a stick if you feel this will help you for the exercise. As I demonstrated, begin small, gradually work on increasing that range of motion as we go through it, but stay within what feels capable for you and what feels safe. This is also going to be 1 minute on each side. So when you're ready, set yourself up, and then time begins now. So I collapse in and I lean back. I also want to then think, how can I make this as active as possible? What do I need to contract in order to bring me into these positions around that whole ankle, knee region, those muscles I was training? How am I contracting them to get me into these positions? And then, as you notice, if you're going quite far into internally rotating and leaning back, you start to notice that does load the inside knee a fair bit. You do want to challenge that region. We are challenging the tissues around the inside knee. You may notice them stretching, but you also want to keep it tolerable. 15 more seconds. And finish up on that rep, and then switch sides. So I start small, I assess. After a rep or two, I see how much more can I go in with my knee, how much more can I collapse that knee. After a couple of those, I start to lean back. And then I see how much weight can I put onto my rear leg as I lean back, how much can I load the knee, the ankle. Feel a good stretch, how much can I work into that stretch. Keep it going a little longer, 15 more seconds. And finish up on that rep there. Our next exercise, we're going back to the other leg, and this is going to be like a collapsed squat. So what I'm going to do is, when I squat down, again I've got a comfortable squat stance, I'm going to let this knee internally rotate, let this ankle collapse. So it will look somewhat like this. I squat down and then come up. Now how low you go very much depends on how your hip, your knee and your ankle can collapse inwards. How well that hip can internally rotate, how well this can load internally, how much of this collapse can you promote. So you don't have to go that low. It may look something like this. Okay, you may start small, gradually rep by rep, go a little further, and then do see how low you can go. If you can get to that bottom of the squats all the way, and then come back up. Okay, challenge yourself. Once again, like before, just stay within what feels capable. And again, you can use a stick for this. So as I go through the motion, if I'm a little unsure, I can have the stick here just in case I need to use it to assist to bring me back up to the start. It's going to be 1 minute on each side. Again, play with squat stances as well. If you feel you're a bit too narrow with your stance, it doesn't feel great, go a little wider, see how that feels. Okay, so time begins now. I'm going to squat down, collapse this leg inwards. I can begin small. Take an active approach, try to contract the muscles around the ankle. That bring me again into that position. And then yes, if I feel capable, I can then think, go a little further down. Can I come up from that position? If I can, maybe go a little further. And then begin to challenge yourself. 20 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Switch sides. Time begins now. I'll begin small. See how things feel as I go through those motions. See how that range feels before I expand. Uh, 15 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, we're almost done. What we're going to do now is just return back to our passive squats. Hang there for a minute, and we just want to assess how that all feels around the ankle, around the knee, from the start to the finish. So, sitting down in your squats, choose again whichever setup you went with, like I said in the beginning. If you felt you had to lift up the heels, lift them up, and then just spend a bit of time here exploring, moving around, seeing how things feel. How does your base of support feel around the feet now? How much movement freedom do you have around your ankles in that bottom squat position? How does it feel bringing the knee in and out? How does it feel rolling over your ankle now? How does that squat in general feel? How maybe does it feel on the rest of the body? How does your spine feel now? How does your pelvis feel? Just assessing. And how much more movement freedom do you feel you have as well? Do you feel maybe you sit a bit deeper, maybe your knees close a little bit better? Maybe you can go forwards more over your toes with the knees. 10 more seconds. And then when you're ready, you can slowly stand up. Well done for today's class. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed today's content. And as usual, if you have any questions, you have any feedback, just drop a message in the description below and I'll happily get back to you. Have a good day.